When a pilot gets that commercial certificate, does that mean they're ready for Delta United? We're going to find out on this episode of Taking Off Podcast. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Taking Off Podcast. I'm Dan Milliken.
And I'm Christy Wong. And today I dressed prepared for it to be cold in here.
That's right. So we're shooting at the beginning of October here in Texas. It's still kind of warm.
Is it October already?
It's already October, although I don't know when this episode will air. It might be November by the time we put it out there. But last time you came on a day that it was 109 degrees when
Correct.
we recorded last month. And it was 40 degrees here in the studio.
Yes.
I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt as well.
Yeah, it's 83 outside and 33 inside. So
Yeah, big difference here. So we are dressed appropriately. Now, for those listening on Spotify, Amazon, or iTunes, you're not seeing what we're talking about. But for YouTube podcasts, you'll be able to see what we're talking about.
Awesome.
And we're talking about commercial pilot certificates.
I get asked all the time if I'm a commercial pilot. And when they ask me that, they're asking if I'm an airline pilot. And
Exactly.
those are two different things.
Totally different things. And to help us with this topic, I've reached out to YouTuber, commercial pilot in charge, Seth Barber. Seth,
Wait, is it? No, it's commercial pilot in command.
Oh, in command. I said
Yeah, just
charge.
remember pilot in command.
Pilot in command, PIC. So
It's
Seth
CPIC.
Barber, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Dan, Christy, thanks for having me on. How are you?
We're doing good.
Cold.
Now, where are you at? We're calling you in. Where do you live? Where are you operating out of?
I am in Orlando, Florida, and it is a very hot day.
So you're not bundled up in blankets and sweatshirts.
No, it could be cold inside.
Yes,
No,
Well, very
no
cool.
sweatshirts, but lots of sweating and good air conditioning for sure.
All right, Seth, do you see the problem of the non well, I was going to say the non-pilot, but really even those with private certificates may just have this misconception that you get your commercial pilot certificate and that means you're ready to go fly a 737. Do you see that?
Yes, I do actually, and it's a very good topic to discuss because, with regulations, with understanding your certificate, it's important to know what privileges you have as a commercial pilot. And to know the difference between, well, can I go do, any kind of flying? For example, tailwheel flying is much different than, just flying in a 172. And so knowing the regulations and understanding, really what is a commercial pilot's license compared to an airline transport pilot's license, the ATP, can really be a significant, it could be a bad thing if you don't fully understand the differences.
All right, Christy, take us through the hierarchy of the pilot certificates.
Sure. You start off with your private pilot certificate.
Now, you didn't say license.
I did not.
Apparently, some of our viewers
They get very touchy.
they get very touchy if you say pilot license.
It is a certificate, though. I mean, I get it. It's,
Yeah.
some people say PPL, some people say certificate. So I'm just going to say private pilot certificate.
Okay, and then what's next?
So then you get your instrument rating on top of that. So you're still a private pilot, but then you have an instrument rating. So now you can fly in the clouds.
Okay.
So the difference between the two, what I usually tell students is, or what I used to tell students, a private is learning how to avoid the weather, and an instrument is learning how to fly with the weather.
Mm-hmm.
Then you work toward your commercial certificate.
So that's the next one.
That's the next one. Now you could either do your commercial multi-engine or your commercial single engine. I did my commercial single engine first.
Which most people do.
Well, now, yes. It used to be different, though, because you used to have to do your initial commercial in a retract airplane.
That's right.
So the best way to do that was just to do a 2-in-1, get it done in the multi, because the multi was a retract.
And you wouldn't have to later have a multi add-on to your commercial pilot's license, which is what Brian Turner, which is what Brian Turner and I just recently did.
Well, in April of 2018, the FAA changed it, and they said, "Hey guys, guess what? We're not going to make you do your commercial initial in a retract aircraft anymore."
Yeah, so you could just use a 172, which is what's funny is I went for my commercial certificate in May of 2018.
I did mine in
June,
July.
Yeah,
It was July.
I remember because we had barely knew each other, but I think we spent some time on the phone after my commercial debriefing so
Yes.
that you would know.
And I remember being super terrified, which is so funny and so like me, because looking back now, I'm like, the commercial single was the easiest year grade I've ever done.
All right.
But yeah, so you do that. You do so for in my circumstance, I did my commercial single because I could do it in the Warrior. I had at least 10 hours of TAA/retrack time, so I could just do that. And then I got my multi-commercial add-on afterward, which actually saved me money doing it that way.
At what point does ATP, Airline Transport Pilot, come in?
1,500 hours.
Okay, and at that point, then you can get that certificate.
Yes.
And that enables you to be able to fly a 737.
Well, that
with
enables you
people.
to fly 121 or
Right.
the airline. So
Part 121.
Here's the thing, though. I know where the misnomer comes from, where they say commercial pilot, commercial pilot. Back in the day, before they say the 1,500-hour rule, the 1,500-hour rule, it already existed. You already needed 1,500 hours to be an ATP.
To be the captain.
You needed an ATP to be PIC, but as an SIC, you only needed a commercial certificate.
Second in command, yeah.
Right, exactly. But after the Colgan Air incident, they changed it to where now SICs also needed to be an ATP. One thing I want to point out that a lot of people, I see so much of this, 1,500 hours. I don't know why they make us have 1,500 hours, et cetera, et cetera. I would ask you to go find, 10 pilots that actually got hired by the airlines with less than 1,500 hours before that rule. It didn't happen. Most people I know actually had way more time. Like my best friend Heather had 2,800 hours in the mid 2000s before a regional would even look at her. So the 1,500 hour rule, I air quote it, 1,500 hour rule actually improved things for us, whether people want to believe that or not.
So Seth, where are you at in your training?
So I am what they call restricted ATP, which is when you get a degree from college that is an accredited Part 141 school, and you complete your commercial certificate through them, then you are considered a restricted ATP when you hit 1,250 hours. And I am about 1,400 hours. So I'm coming close to my 1,500, but that does change things in regards to applying for certain positions.
So I want to clarify as well. So it sounds like, Seth, you went to a 2-year degree program to get that 1,250 restricted. Am I correct in saying that?
That's correct. And I basically added that on to my previous degree, which basically completed an associate's degree on top of a bachelor's degree. So, anybody looking to become yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah, I got an associate's, then I got a bachelor's, then I got another associate's. So it was kind of like, I got to make up my mind what I want to do here.
Do what you got to do. Now, if you go to a 4-year university under those same stipulations, the accredited 141 flight school, they'll drop it down to 1,000 for your 1,000 hours for your restricted. Correct. That means you still could not act as a PIC. PIC. So you can't upgrade to captain or anything like that, which you wouldn't be able to anyway. But just to clarify some of the terms and where the restricted and the non-restricted ATP. Non-restricted ATP is 1,500 hours, and you meet all those requirements, like the 500 cross country, et cetera, 100 nighttime. I think it's like 75 instrument.
All right. Well, so I don't want to get into ATP because really this whole episode's about the commercial pilot. So when you get that CPL, the commercial pilot certificate, Seth, what can you do with that card?
You can laminate it, put it on the wall, and look at it, because it's going to be a little bit before you really get to use it.
That is an accurate statement.
Right. But on a realistic note, there's a lot of things that you could do. Of course, the first thing that everybody defaults to is going to be a CFI, which if you have a personality, I did a kind of a video on this at one point where I've talked about your personality and, thinking about knowing yourself when you go into doing a specific role. For example, if you're somebody who just is not a people person, maybe customer service is not really your thing, going into something where you're single pilot cargo ops, or you are doing banner towing, or doing ag flying, those are kind of more suitable in that role. And then, of course, you could go way deep down into that hole as to how do you actually get those jobs, which I, try to help people understand a little bit. But to start out, are you a teacher? Are you somebody who really enjoys watching others succeed? Are you a people person? If that's the case, then CFI is great because you're already trained. You already know the school. Most of the time, they will offer you to start your CFI training right after you graduate. So it's almost like, okay, let's jump right into this and keep going.
Now, I will be that person to say, I actually got my CFI. I became a certificated flight instructor and did not intend to use it.
No, I remember you talking about that. You're like, I don't like to teach. I don't like people. No, you didn't say that.
mean,
but you did
I was
not. But
scared
then
to.
you were scared to. But then you did it one time and you fell in love with it.
Well, I got an opportunity to join the Envoy Cadet program. I got hired with Envoy, got the CJO, but then they were like, "Oh, you're a CFI. We can literally hire you right now." And you go to one of our affiliate flight schools, you be a CFI, get your 1,500, we give you a class date. And I was like, ooh, I don't know if I want to do that, but this seems like I really want to go to Envoy. And so I did that, and I was scared. But man, after that first couple of weeks or so, when I started really getting into it, I really enjoyed it. That surprised me.
So Seth, are you teaching? And where are you wanting to go? So, you're restricted ATP. Are you wanting to head to the 121s?
So first of all, no, I'm not teaching. I actually was one of the black sheep that decided that being a CFI was not my thing. So what I ended up doing is I ended up getting into banner towing, which really helped me build hours. And the thing is with banner towing, if you don't mind me talking about this subject, because I do get a lot of interest in this.
Yeah, this is the whole point of this episode. I want to hear about the different commercial jobs.
For sure. Banner towing is great because you get to see so much stuff. Like when I first started, I was down in Miami, and I was just learning how to, basically pick up banners and how to do, Happy Birthday Susan and that kind of thing on the beach. But once I really started building experience, of course, you need a tailwheel endorsement for that. Then what happened was the world kind of opened up to me, and I was able to go to New Jersey, New York. I was able to tow banners all along the beaches in Long Island, all the way up to Montauk. I even did a banner for a hot dog contest in Coney Island, which was pretty awesome.
Did you get free hot dogs?
And
that's an important question.
The thing is we're flying Piper PA-18s, and there's no door, right? So we need to actually lean out and look and see the banner. So there's no door. So you can smell the hot dogs at 1,000 feet, but you don't get to eat them.
Dang. Well, that's interesting.
If you were towing banners, in Florida, how did you end up towing banners all over the place?
The company, they basically hired me as an independent contractor. And once I proved myself in training, what you have to do is you kind of have a check ride where you pick up a banner with your instructor, and the FAA comes out and they watch that process. And if everything looks safe and you know what you're doing and it looks like every other banner tow that they've ever seen, they will add you to their list of being able to fly to the company.
So wait a minute, let me get this straight. If I have my commercial certificate, which I do, I just can't go get some training and start towing banners. I have to have an
endorsement,
a check ride or something from the FAA.
Yes, that's correct.
Wow,
interesting.
Did not know that,
dude. Mad respect for the banner towers out there. I did not know that.
For sure.
Is it an actual endorsement in your logbook?
Job. No, it's actually, how do you put it? It's kind of, you're kind of on a waiver with the company.
Okay.
Right. It's like a waiver because we fly, or when I was there, things might have changed, but I don't think they have. But basically, we're flying restricted category airplanes. And so there's a restricted category. Utility category, and then they add you to that waiver. The FAA approves that.
So I very well here in Texas might be in a situation where I do banner tow where I get a company that just checks me off and goes. I don't have to get an FAA waiver or endorsement. Is that correct?
It depends. It depends.
So it just
I
varies. It's the company that's driving that, is what I'm hearing you say.
Right. And anybody who's interested, I would highly recommend and look for companies that have that process, because you want that process. You want the FAA to know that you're a good pilot and they've watched you pick up a banner, and you're not flying for Joe Schmo's, banner company, and there could be legal restrictions. If you get into the
Safety.
regs, when it comes to in safety, right? So having a safe company, a reputable company, and one that is friends with the FAA and follows the regulations will keep you safe and set you up for a successful career.
Does it say banner tower on your certificate now?
No.
Dang it. See?
I wish it did, but it doesn't.
See, I would want that.
What else can you do with a commercial certificate other than teach or banner tow if you want to build time to get to that 1,500 hours?
Anything that you would consider, how would I put it? Like, for example, you can tow gliders. That's another thing. When I was, I originally trained in Colorado, there was a local company that you got your tailwheel endorsement, which I always tell people, get your tailwheel endorsement, spend the 15 hours getting it, because it will open up more opportunities and it will allow you to take on jobs like, in fact, if you look at ag flying as well as banner towing and glider towing, all three of those, the primary aircraft they use are Piper Pawnees, Piper PA-18 Super Cubs, and they're using any kind of tailwheel aircraft. So having that endorsement sets you up to be able to apply to other jobs. So that's another one that I see a lot of people do. They go and they tow gliders, which gives you PIC time. It gives you cross-country time, depending on how far you go, which is what I was able to get when I was towing banners. I put 600 hours in my logbook in between Memorial Day and Labor Day, which is a ridiculous amount of hours.
Just over summer, yeah.
So what I'm hearing is a lot of towing opportunities for building time.
Yes, exactly. And, one thing that I've wanted to see was more opportunities open, but I'm always looking for other opportunities that are going to open to pilots that have lower time. The thing is going back to your first comment about the 1,500 hours, it really is important to have good quality experience. And one thing that I had a flight instructor say one time is, do you have 1,000 hours in an airplane, or do you have 1 hour 1,000 times? And that always struck me as,
right.
Well, that's interesting, because how much experience are you getting as like a flight instructor flying around in circles, which you're not even controlling the airplane, you're supervising the controls. How much experience are you actually getting, muscle memory experience?
It depends,
And,
honestly. It depends on the
true.
kind of person you are and the kind of instructor you are. Because I feel like I gained a lot out of my instructing experience. But I also did corporate flying and stuff like that. I got a very good, vast experience of flight time. But yeah, if you're content just to sit in the right seat, then that and not
give
do
the
anything.
same lesson over and over again.
Yeah, that's different. It's going to boil down to the person. What are you willing? You get out of this what you put into it, and that's true of like any job you take, even at the airlines.
Okay, what other?
I would certainly agree.
So, Seth, other than towing, banners, gliders, and by the way, side note here, rabbit trail. Brian Turner got to go gliding.
Yeah, I saw that.
He liked the tow plane more than the glider.
I believe that.
So I like the glider more, and so we want to try to go out there, get our ratings. But he wants to get
I want to go.
He wants to get his tow pilot rating. I want to get my glider rating.
I want to get the glider. Glider is really great because it teaches you energy management. We are going just way off on a tangent.
Oh, no, yeah.
I will tell you. So going back to what you were saying, when I got my commercial certificates, I was like, I'm a commercial pilot. Okay, this is useless. And then I started looking as I approached 500 hours. That's usually about the time people will start hiring you, is right around that 500 hour mark. And I looked at companies like Skylands, which is the like aerial photography. They do like the 172s and stuff. You can also do like aerial survey with certain companies,
Pipeline patrols.
and things like that. The problem,
Skydiving.
right? Well, the problem with those companies though is that like they probably get, I don't know, 1,000 applications for every one opening.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
I thought everybody's
so
starving for
competitive.
pilots right now.
Oh, it's so not for low time pilots. Because
Okay.
there's low time pilots are like the higher up you go with the more flight time that's needed. Yeah, they need pilots, which is why a lot of these major airlines are reducing their minimums.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at like Southwest, for example. They used to be like, oh, you must have like 10,000 hours and a 737 type rating and O positive blood type, you know?
Right.
And now with like a 4-year college degree with a master's and everything else, now they've lowered it to where they're like, okay, you got 500 hours of turbine time, come talk to us.
Mm-hmm.
So, but the lower level ones, there's a lot more pilots available. So I believe, based on my current information, I could be wrong. You guys are welcome to correct me, but those low time pilot openings are highly competitive.
Okay, so we have pipeline, aerial photography, jump pilot. Seth, what goes into all of those? With you've got 400 hours, you've got that certificate for a commercial pilot. Are you able to just go and start doing those right away?
That's a tough, definitely a tough ask, because I see this a lot of people are struggling. Like, I'm at 500 hours. What else do I need to do? I'm not getting hired. And it goes back to what you were saying about the quantity of low time pilots that are applying for these positions. And you got to be careful, because there are some companies that can be shady. You really got to look into a company. I have a friend who did some transport stuff in between the Caribbean islands, and he said it was really, really sketchy. He said maintenance was bad, and
a whole bunch of
it was just not good.
Baggies of flour-looking stuff.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I had friends that got jobs as cargo pilots when they were around the 500-hour mark-ish. But it was funny because they would only hire them if they had their CFI certificate at 500 hours. So, yeah, it was just one of those, like, you have to have the certificates and the ratings, even though you're not going to be a CFI. But they were like, well, if you get your CFI, then it proves that you can go through the rigors of a CFI check, right? That was, I think, kind of their...
Right.
So that's honestly why I got my CFI originally, because I was like, oh, this will open up opportunities and doorways for me.
I see.
Yeah.
It's a great point.
What else, Seth, does that 400-hour newly minted commercial pilot, what can they do to help build time other than what we've mentioned?
So the thing is that if you've noticed, it's kind of a two-part answer. There are airlines that are starting to hire and basically bring in commercial pilots from graduation and bring them up into the ranks and basically take them on, pay for their training, getting them into the airlines. And I would consider, if I was in my commercial pilot training, I was getting ready to graduate, a couple months before then, I would start talking to, I would get on LinkedIn, and I would look for recruiters and anybody in talent acquisition with those companies that you're interested in, whether it's United or Southwest or whichever ones are providing that service, and see if you can start getting that conversation started. So that way, when it comes time to graduate, that you might have a chance to be able to get on with that company. Like, getting hired at United with 250 hours is an unbelievable accomplishment. Eventually you're going to be a captain at that airline, and you're going to go on from there. So there is something to consider for that as well. One thing too is, and this is where I had a little bit of luck, I guess you could say. After I got done banner towing, I got hired on with a cargo carrier. And one of the things they did was they looked at my hours and they said, well, you kind of need about 20 more hours for night flying. So what we're going to do is, we have a company 172. We're going to put you in that, go fly every night for 3 or 4 hours, build up your nighttime, and then when you get done, we'll start the next phase of your training. And that was monumental for me to get those very, very important hours in my logbook that you need later on.
Now, am I correct in saying that like these programs you were mentioning earlier, United, Southwest, et cetera, they'll bring you onto their programs, but their expectation is that you'll get your flight instructor certificates. That's how you're going to build time, because you can't build time with them in any other way. Like you can't join United's program and then build time with United as a United pilot until you hit 1,500 hours. So how do you get that 1,500 hours?
It's a great question. And, it really depends on the program. And if they are requiring a CFI, like you had mentioned, then they're going to pay for that, especially when it comes to your ratings, when you're taking your check rides, when you're taking your written tests. You're hired from that company. They want.
So I can tell you they do not pay for it. What they do is they provide access to get financing for it.
Oh, really?
Yes. I have got a very good friend of mine who actually looked at the United program, and they were going to give her a loan for $100,000.
Holy cow.
Yes.
Is that what you're seeing, Seth?
Yeah, that's interesting. I have, I've been kind of looking into it a little bit. I haven't looked that deep into it recently. And I know that this is kind of a new idea and that things have changed. So that specifically, I'm not aware of, but I could be off on that information. So I definitely say, do your own research and depending on which company you're looking for.
Yeah, I 100% guarantee you, unless somebody wants to provide a link or something below that says, here you go, we're going to pay for all your training. They do not pay for your training. They're giving you, what they do is they put you in the pipeline from like 0 to hero, and then you've got a spot basically when you get to that point. But they're giving you access to loans, to the financing to finance your aviation progression, if you will. And the whole thing behind it is you will get your CFI and your double I and possibly your MEI, again, through these programs. And then you're going to pay it. You're going to build your time by flight instructing with these programs. They partner with affiliate flight schools. U.S. Aviation is one of those flight schools. That's how
where
I know.
you did do Envoy's cadet program.
Yes, but they're also they partner with the Southwest, that Destination 225 or whatever, and I think they're partnering with a couple more now. And that's exactly what it is. You get your flight training there, you become a CFI there. That's how you build your time.
All right. Okay, so last words about that commercial pilot certificate, Seth. Anything else you want to add to the conversation?
Sure. I would recommend looking into companies that are hiring that have more like that kind of program. One, I want to shout out, I'm not sponsored or anything by this company. It's just, I think it's a great program, and I think it's something that is beneficial to pilots. There is 2 companies, cargo companies, that hire pilots to come on when you're not quite low time, like you have to have some experience. You've got to have PIC time. But one of the companies is Mountain Air Cargo. They're on the East Coast, and then there's also Empire. I think it's Empire Airlines. They both have cargo, and the way they work is they bring you in. You might get hired as a captain in a caravan, a 208, or you'll get hired as a first officer on an ATR. You build that time, and then within a few years, you get to a point where they're going to present you to FedEx, and they have great rates when it comes to success stories from being, with Mountain Air Cargo, moving you through the program. It's called the Purple Runway program, which I'd highly recommend anybody interested in ever flying for FedEx. Look up the Purple Runway program. It's right on their website, and you can see the whole kind of system of how they get you to that interview with FedEx, which is almost impossible if you're not with one of these companies. Like they have that retainer, and it's pretty amazing.
All right, very good. And for you guys listening, make sure you check out Seth's YouTube channel, Commercial Pilot in Command. Is it Commercial PIC or Commercial Pilot in Command?
It's both. I call it Commercial PIC all the time.
Okay, so Commercial PIC on YouTube. So Seth, thanks for taking some time out of your day to chat with us about the commercial pilot.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. I'm a big fan of contributing to aviation because it's given me so much and I want to give back to aviation, and that drives me. So I appreciate that you're doing this podcast and that you're bringing me on and you're helping pilots out there who really need it. So that makes me feel good. Thank you so much.
You bet. All right. And for you guys listening, don't forget our sponsors like Flying Eyes, where you can go to flyingeyesoptics.com, use our discount code, taking off all caps, one word for 10% off. Also, Colton Mortgage, if you need a residential mortgage, Colton at takingoff.com. My favorite mounts, our camera here that's sitting here is on one of those mounts. It's 67 Design, 67D.com. The brightest landing and taxi lights out there, Z-Vision, xevision.com. And also Marshall Protective Services, mpsprotects.com. And Jerry Clemens at clemensinsurance.net. Jerry has saved me a lot of money in my insurance. So those are our sponsors. By supporting them, you support us.
You did it. You remembered all of them.
I remembered all of them.
I was secretly counting. I was like, which one's he's going to forget?
So anyway, do visit our sponsors. It really helps us. And we'll see you guys next time on the Taking Off podcast.